Did you know that one of Hawaii's islands is mostly off limits to visitors? Well, in this episode, you'll discover what really makes Niʻihau the forbidden island and why its isolation has remained nearly unchanged for over 150 years. Aloha and welcome to Hawaii's Best. I'm Brian Murphy, Hawaii destination expert and your personal guide to planning an unforgettable trip to Hawaii. Today, we're taking a closer look at the place that most people will never get to visit. In this episode, we'll talk about why one of Hawaii's islands has been off limits for over 150 years. We'll talk about also how that isolation has helped preserve its culture and environment, and what travelers should know about respecting places that choose privacy over tourism. Niʻihau is often called the Forbidden Island, but there's really more to the story than just privacy. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a better understanding why Niʻihau's isolation matters and what role actually the U.S. military and private tours are playing today, and how respecting places that choose seclusion is part of traveling responsibly to Hawaii. Niʻihau is the 7th largest Hawaiian island, and it's about 17 miles west of Kauai. And it's been privately owned by the same family since the 1860s. It's also the only inhabited island in the chain that doesn't allow the general public to visit. There are no resorts, paved roads, and no tourism industry. Really, only a small group of people live on the island, and that's about 80 to 100 full-time residents based on the most recent estimates from the census in 2020. Most of them are native Hawaiian, and Hawaiian is the main language spoken on the island. The main settlement is a village called Pu'uwai. It's the only inhabited area on the island. There's no electricity grid, no internet, and most of the homes are powered by solar panels or generators. Water is actually collected from rainfall, so there's no car traffic. Residents get around by foot, horse, or bicycle. Honestly, it sounds like a dream to live on in today's age of everything that we deal with. And because of that, life on Niʻihau is simple. It's simple by design. The Robinson family, who own the island, have tried to keep modern influences off the island as much as possible. And their stated goal has always been cultural preservation, specifically to protect the Hawaiian way of life, the Hawaiian language, and traditional values. For travelers, this island usually raises two big questions. Why can't people visit? And will that ever change? So let's get into a little history about the island, about Niʻihau's isolation. It didn't happen by accident. And in 1864, Elizabeth Sinclair, a Scottish woman with ties to New Zealand, purchased the island from King Kamehameha V for $10,000 in gold. But the purchase came with a promise that the land and the people would be protected from outside influence. And since then, the island has remained under the ownership of her descendants, the Robinson family. And really, that decision back then and the promise tied to it is what has shaped Niʻihau's unique status today. And for over some 150 years, the Robinsons have kept the island mostly closed to the public. Access is extremely tightly controlled, and only those with family ties, military clearance, or a specific invitation are allowed to visit. So obviously, there's no public ferry, no casual day tours to the village, no unannounced visits. Most of the people living on neighboring Kauai have never been to Niʻihau. But there are a few exceptions. For example, the U.S. Navy maintains a small installation on the island and has long-term access there. The military has used parts of the island for communication and training since World War II. But beyond that, some guests are invited for hunting or cultural exchanges, but these are carefully selected and they are not advertised at all. That's a little bit of why Niʻihau is called the Forbidden Island. It's not that it's legally forbidden, but the family's policies and the lack of infrastructure make it inaccessible to nearly anyone. And that's really the point. And that's why life on Niʻihau is different. It's designed to be different. As I mentioned, the only village on the island is Pu'uwai, and it's a small self-contained village. There's actually a school, a church, and a community center. And actually, shell late making is one of the few commercial activities on the island. These leis, made from tiny shells collected along Niʻihau shores, are prized for their craftsmanship and cultural significance. I would definitely recommend looking up a Niʻihau shell lei. They're beautiful. They're sold to collectors and could be worth thousands of dollars depending on the quality and design. Also, from a conservation standpoint, Niʻihau is a sanctuary. The island has become a safe habitat for endangered Hawaiian muck seals, native wetland birds, and rare coastal plants. And as you know, a lot of the islands in Hawaii do have tourism, and few places in Hawaii are as untouched as Niʻihau. And that isolation has helped preserve both nature and culture. But with all quick break from today's episode. Don't worry, this isn't a sponsored ad, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to say thank you for listening. If this podcast has been helpful for you at all, hitting follow on your podcast app is the best way to support it. It's free, and it helps more people plan better Hawaii trips. Thanks again for listening, and let's get back to today's episode. This isolation, it also makes daily life harder on the island, especially as the costs of basic needs continue to rise. Still, the people who call Niʻihau home continue to live with purpose and resilience, following traditions that have nearly disappeared everywhere else. Now, while Niʻihau remains closed to general tourism, some highly controlled access points have existed for decades now, even though most visitors never step foot on the island. One example is a helicopter hunting safari. This has been around since 1987. It's a private tour that have brought in hunters targeting non-native species. And these trips are often a conservation or badge hunting experience with unused meat donated to the village. So there's no contact with residents, and landing zones are strictly limited. Another way visitors can experience Niʻihau is through boat tours. Companies like Holo Holo Charters and others have full-day trips across the channel for snorkeling near the Lehua crater with no landing on Niʻihau itself. These tours highlight marine life, pristine waters that surround Niʻihau, and views of the Forbidden Island from a respectful distance. And in addition to these, there's also a rare helicopter tour that offers limited access to Niʻihau shoreline. It's operated by Niʻihau Helicopters, and this is a half-day excursion that includes a narrated aerial tour of the island, followed by landing on a remote beach chosen best on wind and weather conditions. Visitors can swim, snorkel, enjoy the beach along the secluded coast, which is pretty cool. And while contact with residents is still restricted, this experience offers a quiet, respectful glimpse of the island's untouched beauty, something very few people ever get to see. Additionally, the U.S. military also maintains, like I mentioned, a small installation on Niʻihau, and this provides revenue, jobs, logistical support for the island as they work alongside the Robinson family to help sustain the island without opening up for tourism. So it's the reason why Niʻihau is often talked about as kind of like a time capsule. It's a place where Hawaiian language, values, daily life continue without interference. That's still true, but the reality is it's more complicated. The island's preservation depends on a delicate balance, keeping outside influence to a minimum while still bringing in enough resources to support the community. It's a fragile model, but as it depends on the Robinsons family's willingness and ability to maintain that balance. And with rising costs, aging leadership, and environmental challenges, that's not always guaranteed forever that it'll be this way. But for travelers, Niʻihau is a reminder that not every place in Hawaii is meant to be visited. Some places are meant to be protected. So knowing what Niʻihau actually is and why it's off limits helps put other tourism experiences into context. It's one of the last places in Hawaii where the Hawaiian language is spoken daily and where cultural practices continue without outside pressure. It's not a destination to just check off the itinerary. It's a community making intentional choices to preserve something extremely rare and precious. And respecting that, even from afar, is part of being a responsible visitor to Hawaii. So thanks again for listening to this episode. I hope you found it helpful for me, I was Waimea Canyon, exploring that and looking over off the west side of Kauai and seeing Niʻihau and wondering about the island. So I hope this kind of maybe clears up some of that for you. And if you found it helpful, just go ahead and follow on whatever podcast app you are on right now. And that just helps you stay up to date for future episodes. All right. And until next time, as always, live with aloha. Mahalo for listening to Hawaii's Best. If you found today's episode helpful, make sure to hit follow on your podcast app so you don't miss future episodes. You can find all links and resources mentioned today in the show notes below. Hawaii's Best is produced by Shorebreak Media Group, edited by Easy Podcast Solutions, and with music by our friends Stick Figure.